Hey everybody, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Today we're going to be working on these spinnerbaits. Now you guys know I don't do too many spinnerbaits. Usually I'm making hard baits. But in keeping with my lack of desire to melt lead, I make these spinnerbaits with lead that I can just buy. Actually bullet weights. Just like I make these other jig heads. This little lead head rig I made with a round split shot that I just pinched on that hook, and this one as well, and it's got a little weedless gate. I also make these umbrella rigs for fishing with crappie, and you can see it's all just lead I can buy. Now I've got this box of spinner parts that was given to me by a friend of mine, but you can buy all this stuff online, either at Netcraft or Lure Parts Online or another place like that. Okay, so let's go over what you're going to need. First, you're going to need some stainless steel wire. This is 0.9 millimeters in diameter, which is 0.035 inches. The length is 6 inches, and that works perfect for this setup. That comes out to 15.25 centimeters, or thereabouts. You're also going to need a good stout hook. This is a 5/0 Mustad O'Shaughnessy bend. You're going to need some skirt material. These are pre-made and they're silicone. They work pretty good. And of course, blades for your spinners, primary and secondary blades. All my blades are Colorado blades. You're also going to need some clevises. These are number 3s. I use those to mount the little secondary blades. You're also going to need some beads. You're going to need some of these bullet weights. These are variety, but I'm going to use this 1/4 ounce one. You can see the one on this one. I painted it with powder paint. Now you don't have to paint yours with powder paint. You can paint it however you feel comfortable. You're going to want to use some eyes. You'll need some small swivels. You'll actually only need one just to hold the primary blade. So let's get started. So first, we're going to snell this wire onto the shank of this hook. And what that means is I'm going to put it through the eye, and then I'm going to give it 3 or 4 or 5 twists around the shank of the hook. Now, the best way to do it is to get about 1.5 inches of wire through the eye, and that works out pretty good for a 6-inch wire. And then you want to bend the standing end, the part away from the hook, parallel to the shank of the hook. Now I'm going to bend that tag end perpendicular to the original wire and perpendicular to the hook, and I'm going to give it a little 1/4 turn around that hook shank. Now it's set up perfect to twist it. Now you can do the rest of this by hand, but I have this little gizmo that I'm going to use because it's just a lot easier. And I want to keep that end nice and parallel. There you go. Easy peasy. So that stays on there pretty good, and if you're afraid that it might be a little weak, you can always put a drop of glue on it, but I promise you, unless you're going after tuna, that's not going anywhere. Okay, it's time to prepare the head, and I'm just going to attach it to this screw eye so I can heat it up. Now I'm going to heat it up with this heat gun, and then I'll turn on the vibratory table, give it a dip, and there it is, nice and blurry. Sorry about that. But it came out nice. It's nice and shiny. Time to work on the skirt. I'm going to use this green one. It's silicone, so it moves really nicely in the water. It sort of undulates in and out as you pull it. But I want it to be a little thicker. I want to have it have a little more mass, so I'm going to use this fly tying hair. It's shiny and it's sort of slick, but it gives it just a little more volume. And I'll tie this on with some fly tying line. Just give it a few twists, no big deal, and a drop of crazy glue. I'm not trying to make it beautiful. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide the skirt over the hook and down on top of those twists. And I'm going to push it well past the twists. I want those twists to be exposed so you can see them there, and that'll come in handy later. Now we need to permanently affix that lead head, and it'll slide right down, and you can see that it actually presses the fibers back and gives you that nice little open skirt look. Now I'm going to go ahead and get it glued on there good. And I like to use crazy glue, but I use a kind of a different method. I'll put a drop of crazy glue as much as I can on that wire, just so it doesn't drip off but accumulates on the wire. Then I'll take some activator and I'll spritz that inside the head. And when I slide that down and those two chemicals come in contact, there's an automatic reaction and it sets up in just moments. There it is. Now it's solid. It's ready to go to the next step. So now we're going to bend this part of the wire, and it's got to look like that one. And that's about a 30 degree to 35 degree bend. And I'll be using these flat pliers. So the best way to do it really is to mark about 1.25 inches up the wire away from the head, and then bend that wire towards the hook so that marking there goes up and then becomes parallel with the top of the hook. That's about right there. I'll check it with a straight edge. And it's not quite. It needs to go a little further just so it's parallel with the bottom of that straight edge. That's about right. Maybe a little more. That looks pretty good. So the next step is going to be to bend an eye in right there so that you can tie your line onto it. And all these bends are made towards the hook. And I'm going to twist it all the way around so that it makes a 90 degree angle pointing down away from the hook. And you can see that 90 degree right there. Now I'm going to grab it with those flat pliers and give it a twist directly around the standing wire all the way at 180 around so it's pointing to the hook. And you can see you want to have that be a 90 degree as well. Now I'm going to align it with the hook. Make sure I just sight down it and make sure that tip is aligned with the hook. Now we put in the little secondary blade, and I'll use the clevis. But first I'm going to put a little plastic bead down at the bottom of this wire, just so it helps keep that clevis from catching on that twist. And then the clevis goes through the eye of the blade, and then it just gets threaded onto the shaft. But here is the clevis, kind of hard to see. And then I thread it on, and there's not much left to do now. I'll drop a couple of beads, and those will act like bearings, and they'll keep it from catching on the larger one at the top and the loop we've got to bend right now. So right here I'm bending again towards the hook, and I'm just going to make a small eye, and I'm not going to close it all the way. I need to leave it just a little open because the swivel is going to go on right now. And now I'm just gonna close that eye permanently. That's not coming off there. Now the main blade is gonna go on with a number 2 split ring. And I'll use my split ring pliers and get that threaded on. I thread both of them at the same time. It makes it a little quicker. And there you go. That's it. It's physically complete. Now we just need to do a little bit of aesthetics. Let's put some eyes on. These are 5 30-second eyes. Just stick on flat eyes. And I like handling these with like really small tweezers. Makes it easier. And there you go, they just stick on. It has a pretty good adhesive. One on either side, and I just use the hook for reference. Kinda like the way that came out. Looking pretty good. And that is a completed spinnerbait. Now there's one more thing I want to show you. Those twists on the hook are going to come in handy, and let me show you how. I like to run a soft plastic trailing lure like this little minnow swim bait, and I'll run it right up onto the hook, and then when I get down to those wire twists I can just screw it onto the wire twist, and that thing is going to stay there. It's better than most barbs. And there it is, with a little trailer and everything. It's looking pretty natural, and that's not coming off. There you go. Real simple way to get some nice spinner baits. Very low cost, and all you need is some hand tools. So thanks for watching, and if you like this stuff, subscribe. And if you have any suggestions or questions, put them in the comment box, and I'll try to answer everyone I see. Okay, catch you on the next video.